I will call the meeting to order, and we will please rise for the pledge for our vast audience. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple extra things that aren't in your packets, but when we get under either old business, open issues, or new business, they're nothing really earth-shaking. The first thing we have is the minutes from our last meeting for December 6th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 6th, 2017.
I'll second it.
A motion and second. Any changes, corrections, left outs, anything needed? Give everybody a moment to read through.
I see a typo. On budget guidelines, item 5, I've got a typo in there. Last sentence of the third paragraph, also discuss any warrant articles that the TAC may wish to sponsor. I'll fix that.
The next,
No, it's on the next page.
oh,
This page right here.
because he's got TAC here too, but it's the
Right, no,
advisory.
that's what you
Yeah,
have.
right.
It's that one.
Right.
You all set, Bob?
Yes.
Bev, are you all set?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, on the motion to accept the minutes with that one typo. Bev?
Yes,
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes. The next item was some questions. That we had asked, or that we had referenced before. So, the first one was is the Board of Selection financial policy that's on the town website. Under the Board of Selectmen tab, the most current, up-to-date one, have there been any changes or additions? Holly answered that one, that as of our meeting, that was the most current one they had. I think at the following selectmen's meeting, they had voted to do things on it. So if they made any changes, it should be on the website now. The second one was the $5 million bond anticipation note or ban that was due to be settled by December 1, 2017. The answer was that ban was paid off or settled by way of another band, which is basically extending the ban for a length of time. Does anyone have any comments on those first two? The third is, were there any other bond anticipation notes out at this time? Town administrator responded that they have 4, totaling $9.9 million. I think the town, has 7.6, and the other one is the sewer for the pump station, and I think Bob kind of followed up on that or noticed.
Yeah, I followed up on that with the town administrator just for clarification, and he did point out that the $2.3 million difference was the sewer project ban.
So, and I believe, and I have them printed out when we get onto old business.
Okay. So does that include the ban that was just rolled over?
They took out a new, yeah, it's in
Okay.
that night, they took out another band to pay off. So
Right,
they basically
so-
like,
Rolling it?
yeah,
Yeah, okay, so the total is, they have 4 and it's 9.9 million.
with, including the sewer one, yes.
Okay,
That's what they're saying.
all right.
With regards to, does the town have a firm to conduct the 2017 audit? Roselli and Clark has conducted the audit, and in his answer, they have completed their field work. So I don't know if he was speaking maybe out of turn or meant to say the audit was complete, or if
Doesn't
they're
sound
just
like it,
part
though.
of the way through it. But Roselli and Clark is the firm that is doing the 17 audit. I did also point out that the committee voted that it was not feasible to give them a hard date for a pre-town meeting. And as you can see in the email, that if we can notify them, as soon as possible, so one or both of them, the accountant and the town administrator, might attend. And I also noted that Paul would be following up with the Vadar, and I don't know if,
I sent them the dates that we had recommended. I saw, he copied me on the email that he sent to Veda, and there was an individual assigned. I don't know if he's the sales rep, but he was the one who's trying to coordinate one of those dates with his training team.
okay.
But I haven't heard anything since last week.
So, we did get answers. I'll be guessing probably like after the first of the year, after the holiday stuff and everything, that more news about these 17 audit may come into play. I hope we have another presentation, at least an open presentation, public type meeting, when it is completed. Does anyone have anything further on those?
The
Yeah.
only thing I find unique is the fact that when we asked if there were any bans out, they included the sewer project along with the town projects, which a lot of times they try to tell us that they're both two separate things. But in reality, if the light company or the water or the sewer department goes under, the town is responsible. But that's, what bothers me is I do not believe that the majority of the people in this town understand how we're doing this whole thing. I hope we don't get burned. I really don't, because of they're talking about the interest rates going up next year. But it is what it is, so that's just my 2 cents worth.
Yes, Bob.
I just wanted to clarify, last week, when we were having this discussion, Julie, asked a question related to the balance, from those bands, or from the bands we took out, and I got a response. I requested that information, with some clarification from Carter, and got a response that the remaining balance at present is, $6,360,990. Remaining in those. And that even though in the process, the breakdown for the request for the bands had the police department listed as $975 for the justification for the band or whatever. It's my understanding from the response from Carter that that money, without going to the police station, it becomes fungible. So it can be used for the school or, in the process, because it's a, general purpose band or whatever the
Right.
reading is. So just for clarification. just so we know.
Thank you very much.
All right. That takes care of the questions.
Pennies.
Now, to our committee budget for fiscal 19, that they need, town administrator for selectman's office launched by January 2nd. It's in your packet, and I think I forwarded that email to everyone. Some of the things that Will had brought up. And it's in that little, for our expenses, he has a figure of 468150. And suggesting to ask for emergency reserve fund, it says reserve, but I think it should be reserve fund of 78,000. First, the budget. I don't know if we want to leave that number as it is or round it down or up. I do know in his memo about the budget in his annual TA report. I think it's in your packet, and it has the it may not be this one. But he had noted that the time frame of January 2nd and he's looking for like a breakdown. You want so much money for this, for that. And on the expense ledger, budget versus actual, under the advisory committee's portion, it's the group 130, unnamed. I mean, you can't find advisory committee on it. I mean, the average person can't look at a budget versus actual and know where their money is, who or what it's being spent on, because it's not listed. So there is employee support, there is purchase of services, and intergovernmental, which seems to be the reserve fund. The purchase of services, would be like the ATF, maybe the dues for the committee to belong to the Association of Town Finance Committee. Employee support, I would take to be money set aside to attend, to pay that $55, $60 fee, whatever that is. The other purchase of services would be like to pay for the advertisement for pre-town versus the annual and any special town meetings. Purchase of services would be for, if the VADAR fee is, a yearly continuing thing. Postage, if we wish to send out information or that we have talked about, and I
Yep.
hope after the first of the year, we can get back, back to discussing that, of our recommendations, rather than just relying on them intermingled with the warrant articles, if we wish to produce one. I don't know if anyone has seen, when you come in, the treasurer and collector's office is now on the left-hand side, and there's a built-in counter. You no longer walk in the office. So apparently there was an issue with the availability of the copier that was in there. It collates, staples, does all kinds of things. And it's in one of his annual report, weekly reports. It stated it was I'm not sure if it's in this one, but,
I think it is.
how did it go? Roselli and Clark, the auditors, noted some security concern, which is supposed to be why they swapped the offices, where the planning and everything is now over where the treasurer collector used to be, and the treasurer collector is over on the first office on the left. You open up the door, and there's a counter space there with a windowway, and then they have a locked door actually for the employees to go into the office. So, the thing was, there would either have to be other arrangements made for copying, thinking, and some copying would have to be moved to that small copier in the hallway. That leads me to believe that coming into, I don't use the town copier, but next year may, Will used to come down and get things
Yeah.
copied out and make copies for town meeting or whatever. And he always made arrangements with the treasurer collector, hey, if you're not busy, I'll use it, and if you need to use it, then I'll stop what I'm doing. Apparently, that's not gonna be an option anymore.
He used to come at noon time because everyone would be on lunch,
So,
he could get that done.
since we can't do that,
Costs a lot of
Will
money to
has,
make
you know-
copies. It cost me $40 when I made those copies up for the cemetery commissioners.
so, all we can do is put this forth and ask for it, and the TA can, if he wants to cut it, he can cut it, and justify why he cuts it.
Right.
I mean, personally, the last time I went to the MMA conference, myself and Julie, we paid our own way, but if you go in there for a town thing, for the Association of Town Finance Committees, I
I think-
registered and I got a bill for $55, but, so all we can do is ask for money to cover that.
I think
shouldn't have
anyone
to
that
be-
wants to go should go.
We shouldn't be taking money for training out of the reserve fund.
No.
You know, we should try to put it aside. So,
Well, I think, I looked at the budget that's in front of us, and, the printing costs, I don't know if $750 is gonna cover it. But it's a start. It's a new expense that we hadn't had to budget for last year.
yeah.
So, and I think covering the ATF conferences, both the annual and the spring, we always put in money for the pre-town meeting notices. I don't know if the Gardner News is going up in their prices.
No, but it's, again, should we be tapping the reserve fund to pay for advertising for pre-town meeting?
No.
Or should we have any expenses
Right.
to cover it? Because we know it's required by law, and if we don't use it, I mean, it's not like it's wasted money.
No.
Right,
It will go back into the general fund.
right.
Um,
I think if we ask everyone else to be upfront and honest about where the money's going, we should too, so.
And can I ask
Yes.
a question here? The reserve fund we're talking about would be the reserve fund under maybe Chapter 40, Section 6, if anybody knows. It's basically for unforeseen emergency
Yeah.
usage. Okay. Yeah, because from what I was just reading up on this today, trying to get up on this, and it doesn't even look like that would be an appropriate expense
Not really.
for that fund, so.
Right.
That is one of the most important duties that a finance committee has, is they oversee that, reserve, the town's reserve fund. That's, more than it's been in a while. And by putting that money aside, and you're trying to rebuild the bond fund, it shows that you have money to cover emergencies. So you're not scrambling like we were, like the town was just a year ago with a $25,000 pump repair issue.
The fire
We had
truck.
35,000, 40,000, whatever. In reserve fund, I mean, that was like more than half of it.
Right,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might, because I'm new to this whole process and trying to figure out just what's going on. So like I said, I was doing some reading, and it appears to me that under Chapter 40, Section 6, the town is allowed up to 5% of its previous fiscal year's budget to put into the emergency fund. That's the cap that the state allows. Right now, I believe this past year, we had 35,000 in our account, which is basically 42 1,000ths.
It's not even a percent.
Right, it's not a percent. This number here, I don't know, I was just gonna ask where this number is derived from, or was this a, like Will's suggestion for the emergency reserve, or is that a calculated number? Because, I would suggest more, myself, personally. I just don't know where we're at, don't know how this works.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeffrey. Go ahead.
I believe that is a number based on past years. It had been 45, 50,000-ish for a good number of years. Is that enough of a reserve number for the budget? No, but realistically, contrary to what has been put out at some selectmen's meetings and other places, the reserve fund has been tapped for different things. Either out of transfers out of, or to pay for unforeseen things, 25, 35,000 out of a $50,000 reserve fund. So, it's better than 35. Is it in the percentage ballpark? Is it relationship to the amount, the size of the budget? For another, heaven forbid, if you have a $250,000 hiccup, I mean, that's not even half of it. So, in those terms, it is small, but, it's more than's been put in there in a lot of years. I don't expect they're gonna go for it, but, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, Bev?
I think people that watch this, and I know people do, you have to understand that the reserve fund is just a fund. We don't write a check, we don't handle money. We give an approval. If someone comes to us and say they have a problem with the pump, like Jeffrey said, and there's not money in the budget to fix it, any department can come to us and we can talk it over and see what we have for money and look at the other accounts. And if we feel it's acceptable, then we notify the treasurer or the accountant, and they take care of the money. But the reserve fund is like the stabilization fund where the town has never, ever done a good job at maintaining these funds, and they're important. So I would rather have money in there so that if there's a real emergency, somebody doesn't have to undermine their budget, they can come and get that money. But I don't like the idea that it's just there so that it's a savings account. It needs to be used if it's a real emergency. Sleeping.
Julie
No,
has a
he's making
question.
notes. I'll wait.
So people need to understand that, because I know at one point there was the big money missing. Well, it was missing on paper, as far as I know. If I was gonna steal money, I'd steal $1 million.
If I might, I'll just go to jump in for 1 second, Julie, if you don't mind here.
Okay.
I just threw together some quick numbers as references off this, for this number. Based on the state's number of 5% of our operating budget from the previous fiscal year, that would bring the number to $413,864.
Sure.
Right. You know, and I'm looking at, I was just looking at a couple different numbers. You know, we're asking for just slightly less than 1% is the number that's on the paper here, just slightly less than 1%. You know, my question, it relates to what Bev was just talking about, is where I'd rather put the money and what I'd rather be doing with it. I just look at the last year and a couple things, you know, the Sanders. We went roundabout about the Sanders for DPW, whether or not to use the reserve fund. It was suggested we shouldn't use the reserve fund that early because we have such little money in it that it would be a shame to use the $15,000 for exactly what the reserve fund is based on, an emergency unforeseen expense. You know,
It's not okay to do that.
it's, right, it's just, to me, this seems like the place that we should be putting money. You know, because this is for the truck that just broke down, the $160,000, or the $15,000 for the sander. You know, we got fire trucks that are, you know, and that is what this fund appears to be for. You know, more so than the stabilization.
Yeah.
And looking back through our history, it looks like we've used the stabilization account in a case for what this account should have been used for.
Right. Well,
So,
the
you know,
major
I just,
difference between the reserve account and stabilization, the reserve account, you don't need a special town meeting and a 2/3 vote to take money out. So it's there for an emergency. So long as it meets the criteria, it can be approved by this board, signed off, the paperwork goes to the treasurer, and then you can address the emergency in a timely manner without having to post a special town meeting, do a hearing for the pre-town, have the meeting.
Spend
and then
additional money.
hope- Right, and
Hope
spending
somebody shows
additional
up.
money to deal with an emergency. It's supposed to be for emergencies. If we had 35,000 this year, which we took 1,700 out for Vadar, which is ridiculous, but I made the motion to do that, because otherwise we cannot track with the budget to actual if there are enough monies to do transfers from different accounts. If someone came with a request before us tonight to do a transfer, and we had to rely on that budget to actual, I'm speaking for myself, I would have to vote no. I have no idea what money is left in whose account.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Okay? You know, you wanna tie our hands, gag our mouths, and then, you know, throw us in the water and see if we can swim. Well, no. That's not how you should run your government. So I agree that while the 78,000 is slightly less than 1%, it's a step forward. It's double what we budgeted for this year, what was given to us for this year, because we originally put in 50,000. And the selectmen cut it back to 35 in their infinite wisdom.
See, I think
They don't
that
wanna use
they
it
take
for
it
anything.
personal. It's not personal. It has nothing to do with me, or it's just anybody that sits in the seat. Fire chief says, I have a problem, I gotta fix it. Doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat. It's their job to take care of the fire department, take care of the citizens of the town, so, you know, cut it back, fine, we have an emergency, where's the money coming from? Can't do that, not anymore, we've done it too many years.
Town government is very slow and inefficient. And by hamstringing the reserve account by putting an extremely low amount in it, the town is not in a position to respond to an emergency. It just isn't. So while I would think $430,000 would be wonderful.
We have to be
I don't see
slightly
that.
realistic.
Right, I would be happy if stabilization were at that amount, which
Maybe
it
the
isn't.
sales ta- Maybe the meals tax will bring it in.
Oh, maybe.
So,
Yep.
okay, I'll do this I'll try to do I'll put the easy one first.
All right.
For the reserve fund. Percentages off the table, just the number. It's a little more than double what we had last year.
Unless you
Is
go
there a
for 80
guarantee that
and-
the town will get that? No. But is the committee comfortable with inserting that number in our request to the TA, stating that's what we think we should have in our reserve fund? Do you want to go down a little, up a little, leave this number, and let it fall on the town administrator and the board of selectmen?
Could
I
ask
believe the
for
town
80,
administrator is
let
gonna
them
put
cut
the
you.
budget together, and, so, the 78,000, I know the percentage-wise and this and that doesn't math, but, the reality is the reality. So, are you members comfortable with staying with that number? Or does anyone have an alternate number?
Try 80. Worst you can do is cut us to 78.
So,
Really? I mean, go high, because he's gonna,
If we're still discussing this number here and the whole bit, I would say, very similar to what Bev said, go high, because we're gonna get shot, they're gonna cut whatever number we give to them to begin with.
okay.
So my personal opinion would be go for more what we want, what we know is not gonna be accepted, but what we know states that we think it should be more.
That was serious.
Right, something like, even if we went with 2% of 165,000, that is in my mind, that's a much more realistic number for our budget and for the problems that we face on a yearly basis as an emergency. And it says we're serious.
And we do have that $300-something thousand working capital out there
yeah, I wonder what.
to backfill the budget
Well,
with.
now that's the other thing that I wanted to ask. If this money is not used, does it not roll over into free cash
Yeah.
the next year?
Yeah.
It's
So-
certified, if we have an audit and it's certified.
Any
Okay.
any money from the general fund that does not get spent by technically July 15th, because that's the time frame you have to do transfers, rolls over into, I really hate the word free cash, but that's what people notify it as, certified free
Loose
cash.
change.
It's unallocated funds. It's either leftover expenses, you put more money in expense than you needed, or you got more revenue than you anticipated, and it's just leftover money that wasn't used, one way or another, or more money came in. and it's called certified free cash.
You know, we have millions of dollars worth of junk equipment that needs to be replaced somehow, so you can't replace it, you gotta fix it. So, who knows what we're gonna face in the next year? I would go with 80 and see what they say.
All right, for the reserve, I'm looking for, because I know we could kick this around till midnight.
Right.
And I got no problem doing that, but I know I'm in the minority. And I
I
will
have
get,
cookies to bake, okay?
I got, I'll be plowing snow all weekend.
I know you will.
So,
I
Paul, looks
just
like
think it
you-
should-
yeah.
I wish I knew how Will arrived at this number, because I think we should have some rationale behind it, not just, aim high and hope we get something more than what we had last year. So a viable approach is, let's look at what, excuse me, emergency expenses we've had for the last couple of years, and we know it's gonna exceed even the $78,000.
There have been, I don't think there have been recently, touch the reserve that exceeded 78, but I know there has been years that it would have exceeded the 35.
Mhm.
Because there was, right off the top of my head, there was a $25,000 transfer, I wanna say 16, 15 or 16. There were, transfers out of the reserve fund that totaled over excess of 35,000. But in recent memory, there's been 20,000, 18,000. And these weren't emergency thing, but
Right.
the fund was used. Money from the fund was used.
There's no place else to get it.
Yeah.
But look at some of the warrant articles that came up this fall. I mean, some of them, we talked about really, should have been paid for out of the emergency
60%.
fund. So if we looked at, those
Yeah, that's
expenditures
just-
as well, then, we'd be talking about more than $78,000.
And with regard to the fire pump, it was $25,000.
Yeah.
And look at the finagling and the screwing around and the shuffling in the game that was played, rather than just simply come here.
Yeah.
And yes, you can make the argument, and it has been made in the past by past advisory committees, that justification for using the reserve fund should not be poor budgeting or lack of setting enough money aside for maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. But realistically, they set aside what they set aside, and the people voted for that. You know, 50% of all these issues and all these things that come up, whether, the trucks at the highway department are in bad condition, the roof at Templeton Elementary School that was leaking for years, 5 different times it went to town meeting, from 75,000 up to 180,000, metal roof, slate roof, rubber roof, shingle roof. The townspeople voted it down.
Mhm.
So their assets, their property is in crappy condition because they refused to pay for it.
And you get 30 people showing up for these,
For
town meetings to make that
and,
vote, too,
and
so-
make those decisions. So that 25,000, that would've came out of the reserve fund
Mhm.
and didn't. For, when you can go round and round with politics and stuff, but the fact is, that was an issue that justifiably could have used the emergency fund, but powers that be chose not to go that, because apparently it was
Saving
being
it for
saved for something in case they had some real big hiccups. So we were moving money around from here to there to over to here. I mean, we looked like the Keystone Cops. Back to your point of how he arrived at this number, I can't speak 100% to that. Other than, it's at least double, it's a little more than double what we've had in the past. I believe it's an approach trying to get to where
We should be.
feels that we should be.
Mhm.
If you use the percentage guidelines, if you look at our budget, the financial issues, things that have come up in the past few years, where,
Right.
if we would've had a stabilization fund with money in it and a reserve fund, good, that 500,000 wouldn't have been no emergency back in 2014. It wouldn't have been an issue back in 2003. I mean, I don't wanna go back, way back thing, talking about
Yep.
past things, but
But it was convenient.
when these things come up,
Yeah.
You know, and there's towns in the newspaper right now, they got a sewer shortage in Ashburn, here the numbers are off. You know, the city gardener used some free cash to cover things. You know, if you have the funds, if you put the money aside, history is showing us that it's not it's not just Templeton that are having these issues, many, many towns.
Sure.
And the DOR is like the USDA. They simply do not have enough people to come and do the job that they should do on 351 cities and towns. You know, if you think all your meat and all your steaks are getting inspected by a USDA inspector at every dang slaughterhouse in the country, you know, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the people, they can't be in all those places. So
You don't
they
know.
generally look at things and, yep, your facilities look good. It's, you know, if you're driving good and everything looks good, you must be okay. And the ones that are having trouble or have, you know, blowing smoke out the back end and clunking and clinking, them are the ones that get the attention and looked at. That's just the reality of,
But sooner or later,
of
this town's
municipal
gonna have to
finance.
start playing ball by the rules, because nothing will change, nothing will get better.
so,
But I think,
to our number,
I make a motion to make it 80,000. And if, it will be what it will be. Because that would give us an even number, and you know, he's not gonna give it all to you anyway. It depends on what his budget looks like.
okay, I will just say this, and I will ask for this.
Yep.
And I'm asking you to go out on a limb. To trust me to,
I got the.
when
yeah.
we vote on this and finalize what we're gonna do, to support these numbers with a rationale of, a procedure or a percentage, or the committee's thoughts that, while it doesn't meet the percentage, the DOR guidelines and everything, the reality is, and we just think by at least more than doubling it, we are making
We'll be
progress
prepared.
trying to show that, in building a bond rating, that we can put money aside for, and that seems to be the goal of everybody, that if we're trying to build a case for a bond rating and the town's back on solid grounds, that we can put them, we are making steps, slowly gonna build up our reserve fund. And the next thing, or parallel, would be to build up our stabilization fund, our savings. Because nothing says that you're in good financial health more than you have a lot of money, you know, put aside.
Yeah.
Because when you go to borrow money and, well, how much you got in the bank? Well, I got $6. Oh, I got a $500,000 in the bank. I really don't need this $200,000 loan, you know, but I just doing this, oh, well, we'll take your money. That's just the reality. So I would make the case to justify this, that this committee is trying to demonstrate and trying to show, move forward, trying to assist in establishing a bond rating and demonstrating not only to the state, the DOR, Division of Local Services, but to the lending agencies that we are serious, we are moving forward, our finances are slowly improving, and we feel by increasing this amount by more than double of last year's emergency reserve, we are helping to, in the process
And we're
of
prepared if there's
demonstrating
a
to move the
problem.
bond rating. That would be sort of my,
Sounds good.
my presentation.
Yep.
I have another word, but I can't say that on
Sounds
camera.
good to you.
To help justify this.
Okay. I
If
will-
that satisfies,
Yep.
I'm asking you to step out on a limb to trust me, but I will, I will
I
write that
trust you.
that way.
I will second Bev's motion, because I believe the town administrator in the last budget always rounded down or up. It was always an even number.
Right.
So I think 80,000 would be more appropriate.
Thank you.
And they did say that, in one of his reports, that while they're gonna be, you know, looking at things hard and stuff, he's telling departments to ask for what you think you need to provide the services that it's your aim to provide. So, we're trying to provide a service in the reserve fund and enough funds to cover some things that could come up. So, a motion made and seconded for a reserve fund of $80,000, and that would be under the intergovernmental thing on the expense budget versus actual, under the 130 code. which used to say advisory committee, but, you know, we can't tell people what we have in our bank account. So if we're all set on that number of 80,000, we have a motion and a second. I will ask for a vote. Bev?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And yes. All right. Now, for our expenses. And most of this, I believe, is, things I checked on, dues and things are based on, you know, current, maybe a little fudge for, they may increase. The advertising rates from the Gardner News, and we'll be talking about that under old business, is 63.80. So 71, just in case, because I know they did increase their legal rates, so, you know, what was that, I don't know, $7 or something. It's not, you know, jumping a ton, just in case they go up a little bit. And I was looking, again, reading one of the town administrator's weekly reports, and it was in the thing that he sent on the budget guidance and the legislative package and stuff, and when it was due date. I believe that's where it really summarizes, ask for, categorize it, and some kind of justification. And he's asking for it electronically. If you can't send it electronically, drop it off. Like I would go online and find the dues thing and print that out. And if I can get it done electronically, I will. If not, I will just walk in and hand them paper copies. This is due by January 2nd. I will try really hard to get this together and to them next week. If I fail, it will be there the morning of January 2nd. I have gone down, before we do amounts, I would just say, since they have it broken down into 3 categories, intergovernmental we have already taken care of with the reserve fund, so we have purchase of services and employee support. I put ATFC, our dues, as a service, so we can belong to that and get updates and emails and invites to conferences and so forth and so on. Under attend the ATFC meeting, the annual meeting, as employee support. To attend the spring meeting, 5 members, I classified that as employee support. The pre-town meeting notice for the Gardner News as purchase of services. The pre-town meeting for any special town meetings under purchase of services. The VADAR fee for generating files. I believe that's purchase of services. It may be debatable, either employee support or purchase of services. Postage, printing cost is purchase of services. Transportation or mileage expense to attend the ATFC and/or MMA as employee support, and the expenses for 3 members to attend the MMA annual meeting as employee support. And office supplies would be purchase of services, unless anyone. I just jotted that down, looking at the breakdown on the summary, and that's how I would submit that in blocks of the intergovernmental would be the reserve fund, employee support would be, just add up them totals, and that's the total amount, and this is what it would include. And I believe that's how it was in the fiscal 18 in that budget book, hard copy paper. They would have he had a spreadsheet with say the committee's budget request on it for this, this, and this, and then you flip the page and it had breakdowns of employee support and office supplies, et cetera, et cetera.
The MMA annual meeting, maybe we should pay for more members to go.
Well, the ATFC annual meeting or the MMA? The MMA?
The MMA,
Well,
I don't know, what do you guys think?
I would think you would have a hard time getting two people to go, never mind three.
Okay.
Yeah. I do. It's mostly focused, it's,
Selectmen stuff?
yeah, political. There are a few finance. There's good, usually the municipal law session is pretty
pretty
good,
good.
which impacts usually finances. It's a good way to meet people from the DOR and places like that.
Yeah, there's a
But-
lot of selectmen, town managers, town
Yeah.
administrators. I actually think you get more out of going and talk to some of the vendors than some of the
Okay.
seminars. But, so as far as the grouping for services, employee support, I said the VEDAR fee, I mean, that's a license fee, that's the license fee for service, I believe, so.
Right.
And again, I'm trying to go by the grouping on the expense ledger, the budget versus actual, that memo from Carter about, requesting it and, okay, you want this for training, why? Explain it, and what would it fall under? So I would take these items that are purchase of services and total them up, listing, what it's for, but then total it, and that's how much we want for services, and then employee service, support, to go to
Right.
training, to go here, to go there, put them up.
Yep.
It would be fetching, the membership fee for the town, because the town pays for that. By being a member, though, of that, we get, and you can sign up for it, but you can get, you don't have to be a member of any committee or anything anymore to get on the MMA website. It's all open, there's no password, username no more, that's wide open, it's a good resource. But to get emails and the handbooks, from finance committees and any of the meetings, seminars and stuff, even the legislative breakfasts, all of that stuff, if you're a member, and people wanna go, it's a good thing. If anything else, you get to talk to other people that are on committees and you realize, wow, they do the same thing we doing, they got the same problems we got, and they got the same, they got some of the same kind of people that we got too. I mean, it enlightens you that, wow, it's just not Templeton that's, sometimes looks like it's a zoo. I mean, it's like this all over, just the nature of how things work. So,
Jeff, would you like me to take a pass at that and put the information in the categories that you've just gone through here, and then I'll send it back to you to review? Looks like you're gonna be busy.
that would be awful nice of you, Paul.
Okay, glad to do it.
Don't go spoiling them, Paul.
We need,
It might be better received coming from you anyway, but I tend to step on toes.
you said it's gonna be in by January
Just-
Gotta be
2nd.
one good guy in the bunch.
Okay.
And they prefer it electronically, but again, if there's things you can't get electronically, then by drop it off.
Okay.
And I don't know if you walk in on the 3rd, if they're gonna say no,
I doubt it.
I wouldn't suggest doing it, but I don't know, if something comes up and you walk in with it, and here's our stuff for the 3rd, what are they gonna do, tear it up and say, nope, you get nothing?
What about,
That
I
would go
mean,
over, not.
Yeah.
that would be
Right.
assuming they're on time, which
And,
doesn't work out
They're
too
able to
well.
meet timelines.
It's
I don't
moving
get the
timelines.
BS, dang.
and that list of accounts was in the package that the TA sent out, right? The breakdown of which
I
is
think
the.
it was the budget sheet.
It's in,
The budget sheet,
yeah,
right.
it's in that, did you get the budget book?
Yeah, last year,
Fiscal
yes.
18?
I did,
Yeah, it's in it, like, that's why I went and looked up,
Okay.
well, I knew the 35,000, but just to be sure, the 130
Okay.
in that new list of, that town meeting voted on.
I don't remember that.
is advisory committee.
Okay.
So, and like I said, I used what they already had here, employee support, purchase service, and the intergovernmental was the reserve fund.
Okay, so just
And-
reference those accounts.
And yeah,
Break them out by these accounts, and then show the individual details
Detail.
behind it to break it to the
Yeah.
total amount.
I was just kinda using
Back
in my
to
head
save
the
the
format that the TA put together in that booklet.
Sure.
And I haven't gone through and looked at the electronic
Yeah, I'll take a
copy
look
that
at
he
that.
sent
so,
out.
yeah.
I'm hoping we get a paper copy, or I'm just gonna have to go through and print that out, but, and yes, I am still, I picked up 2 reams of, not to get off the subject, but I picked up 2 reams of, pre-punched copy paper, and I got the binders. I was gonna do that this weekend, but I don't think I'm gonna but I am going to get that to you by the first of the year. Our next meeting on January 3rd.
Oh, the third, see, I need it by the second.
That's our next meeting?
Hey, don't push me.
All right.
Don't make me angry, as, what was
All right.
that? The Hulk used to say.
So do you need a motion
Um,
to accept these
well,
figures?
well, yes,
or-
Yeah,
All right.
To, first, the number. Do you wanna go up, increase it, decrease it, stay with that number?
Let's leave it where it
Yeah,
is.
I think that's good. So,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we accept the numbers as prepared by Will.
And those are, a lot of these are based off of, the membership dues and what it costs for each person to go to the ATFC meetings and stuff. The MMA annual, I know the hotel is like $1.80 a night,
Yeah.
$1.85 a night.
Yeah.
And individual is, the last time I went, myself and Julie went as selectmen, we paid our own way. And that was back, what, 14?
I think it was 14.
13 or 14, when, the town was having financial things, and it was,
Yeah.
that was, again, that was a personal thing that I decided, I'm gonna pay my own way to go to it, just
I'll-
because.
I'll second Paul's motion.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded for the AC expenses for fiscal 19 of 4681.50 as listed and broke down. Keeping in mind, this is dependent on what, the TA decides, town administrator, but we'll put it in, make the case, and we'll see what happens. Any further input on this? Alrighty, on the motion, Bev,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and yes. All right. On the committee, next thing is the committee report. I apologize. Been a little busy, well, I must be getting lazy or something in my old age, but my bear is taking up way too much of my time. I did not get too much work on this. Will has a folder with a lot of the 17 stuff. Again, this is due on the 18th, so it's not as pressing as the budget was, because the budget has to get done, they're looking for it for the 2nd. As far as the format of the report, it would be the same as the 16 one. It's basically a column and row type thing with members listed, when they came on, the chair, this, that, anyone who resigned. And then a report on any transfers that we did. Anything involving the reserve fund. And even the general business of what we did in the last year. We can even put, as committees in the past, as advisory committees, our view on the direction of the town and how we think, the stabilization, the use of free cash, and any suggestions or things that we made with regards to finance or things to the selectmen, and what was the result of them. As far as a column, as far as the revenue projections, the this, the that, as Paul pointed out at last meeting, that, you know, some of those things were accepted and put into place, whether they are practiced or not, but, you know, and our disappointment or confusion or wondering of, you know, the financial policy being in place, but then not exactly being followed. So I would ask that you members take some time, you know, to look through the past minutes or the last things and just jot down some things for our meeting, which I believe is the 3rd, January 3rd, our next meeting. And we can work on our report to submit for the annual town report.
I'm sorry, next meeting is?
I believe it's January 3rd. Our next scheduled regular meeting. Because I was just updating them.
Yeah, I just did. Sounds right.
I hate these smartphones, but sometimes they come in handy.
Yep, I've got it the 3rd and
Yes.
17th.
So. And actually, we have 2 meetings before the 18th, so we have one on the 3rd and we have one on January 17th.
Right.
And
And we also got one on the 31st.
31st, we do the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th week, if there is a 5th week. We should have one on the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th, and, you know, just, we'll meet every week. Again, I apologize to the committee that I didn't get more done on that report, but I thought the other things were more pressing, and we do have a little bit of time. We don't have months, but we do have some time to work on that report. So, does anyone else have anything on the report?
No.
And we could just wait.
Mr. Chairman, can we go back to the budget package again? So what I'm going to do is put the draft of that budget plan together as you described, and I'm going to send it to you first to review.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can decide how you want to submit it. Okay?
All right, now. There was a little snafu, imagine that, out of town hall. Under old business, open issues. We had received a bill from the Gardner News for the advertising for the special town meeting in November. Well, and this is what, and I have paid one, I've taken care of one before with a statement, but no matter. We voted to pay it, the amount of $63.80, so I went into town hall with a note and I typed out a thing that the committee had voted to pay this. First, I was told I didn't have a cover sheet, and the accountant said they can't pay off of statements, they have to have an invoice. So, I called up the Gardner News, the lady was very nice, said no problem, I got me an invoice. I got a cover sheet. I filled it out. It's the same amount, $63.80. We just need, she said she needs the committee to sign the cover sheet, so I will pass this down. I don't make this stuff up. The government is not about being for the people, working
Such a
with the
big
people,
community.
and common sense.
Really.
It's just, government works slow. So,
Jeffrey, I've never, ever signed one of those in all the time I've been on the board.
like I
You?
said,
No.
Since when?
so, board committee signatures, there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's see, I sign over here. Oh, yeah, there's just enough lines. There's the 4 lines, but we have a 7-member committee. I don't know where you all sign.
Oh,
but-
man, I don't
So I
know.
will
You better
pass this
sit in the
around
back
for
and
the
ask
committee
her.
to sign, and I will,
I don't know. That
My
may
intent-
screw things up. You better,
Now, let's, I'm facetious and silly enough. We only need one troublemaker in this outfit. Although we have
turns.
several.
He's the head troublemaker, he's
We
gonna
have
do
an
it.
abundance.
We have one quiet guy that is our
He'll get
lifeboat,
with
our
it. He'll be
lifesaver, and
around.
that is Paul. The rest of us were wave-making, troublemaking.
Jeffrey, what,
Getting
are
away
these
of
new
things.
rules, Mr.
So
Chairman?
I will pass this form if members can sign it, and my intent is to drop this off in the morning before they close at noontime.
Does it have to be in black ink?
I do it in blue because when they make copies, it
Right,
stands
you know
out.
the original
you know.
is the original.
I'm used to black ink because the military, everything was in black. Back in my day, we didn't have computers. Everything was longhand, written out in black ink.
When did the rules change? We've never done this in all the years I've been on the board.
Well,
Hey,
maybe-
hey, the thing, you gotta go with the times. Times are changing. You gotta get with the program.
Municipal
I was told.
Modernization Act.
I was told, gotta
Definitely.
get with the program, so. Anyways, it's a simple little thing. It just took
Yeah.
3, 4 steps instead of one.
All right, so this was a bill, it's the end of December, okay,
Yes.
that's about right.
The statement date had balance due
And
of,
When you come in, if they're on break,
the statement date November 30th. The invoice has the invoice date of October 30th.
Okay.
Not
party.
over, and we're not over 90 days yet, so, well, that's what it says, so.
Are you kidding me?
I almost just whipped out a checkbook and paid for it myself while I was there, just to be done with it.
Oh, my God.
All right, I will get that taken care of. Now, I have, what did I do with it? We did talk about the bands. I forget if I put them in packets. No. This is a memo concerning the bands and the bond rating. One, two, I don't, some people may have seen it. I think it was posted some inconspicuous place somewhere sometime.
Great.
Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But that shows this, it's dated November 1, and it talks about ratings for bond anticipation notes and what the town would expect, and the fact that they don't plan to go for a bond rating anytime soon. They're gonna use unrated banknotes, and about $10 million each time in fiscal 18 and 19, and most of these bonds, a good portion of the bands of money that they're going for is to keep the school project moving ahead, which has started. The skate park is tore up. I don't know what they're gonna do with that, where the kids gonna go. The fence is erected, and they're starting to do some work. The second sheet shows what Bob sorta had mentioned. The general obligation band notes that they have out is $77,600,000. The other 2.3 is the sewer
The sewer one.
pumping station and so forth, so. And again, this is something that Paul, we had talked about or brought up or something, and so and it wasn't in the committee's email or something, and I never saw this come through. I don't recall this.
I heard reference to it, or I saw somebody had a hard copy of it, and so I asked Carter if he would, forward that to me, and he did, and I did send that to each of you.
I just got it, yeah.
Okay, and I did speak with him on this, and he was breaking down what the current bans are, the 5 million ban for the school, 1 million for the police station, the 2.3 million for the sewer, and that 1.7 for new money, that is also for the school. So, to date, I guess, they've got a total of 9.9 million in short-term notes for the school. And again, the plan next year is to do the same thing, go for short-term notes. And he did explain that's not unusual, that often that's how construction projects are handled, and then until the long-term financing through the bond at the conclusion of the project. So, at any rate, that, gave me a better understanding of what was going on, I guess, but there's also some pretty stringent requirements on the spending. Pretty much the schedule, I mean, the IRS dictates it, that, because they have to be expended within specified periods of time. 10% of the proceeds must be spent within 6 months of the original issuance date. 50% of the proceeds must be spent within 12 months, and 75% must be spent within 18 months. And then, the rest within 2 years, otherwise, we have to reimburse the IRS.
Okay, so, but this is supposed to be a 1 year, and it's a calendar year?
They keep they keep
Okay,
doing
so
them.
they're gonna renew it. So
Yeah.
this is gonna go until, the due date for this is November 30th, 2018.
Correct.
So between now and November 30th of 2018, for the school project, they have how much money to spend? Is it the 5 million, or is it because they voted not to do the police, right? That they're going,
They have
they threw the
rejected,
bids.
that came up at the elementary school building committee last night, that they had rejected that. And that, I believe that came up because they were gonna intermingle those projects, like as far as paving and stuff.
Mhm.
And, so they have rejected that because the bid proposals came in at like twice the amount that, was like 970,000, something like that, was appropriated at town meeting. And the bid proposals came in at 2,133,000.
Yeah,
It's about double,
okay.
so.
So
But is the 1 million available?
is the 1 million available for the school project now?
Yes.
That's.
Oh.
That was the response that I got from Carter. I asked him
Okay.
specifically that. I says, since the 975,000 was allocated to the police station and the muni purpose loan, can you clarify how that is reflected in question 3 above? And it goes on to say that, it's fungible. The money is
Okay.
fungible.
All right,
Um,
so what this means is that for the school project, between now and November 30th of 2018, they can spend $6 million,
Well,
right?
okay, from what I gather, it would be $6 million plus whatever reimbursement they would get from the MSBA.
Right,
So that's the only clarification I just wanted to make on
Right.
what you,
Yeah.
because I got a little,
but they can't overexpend. Right? They're not supposed to.
If you
This is
stay within, if you stay within the law, no, you can't spend more than was appropriated.
Right,
But what was agreed to was the total amount, the 48 million.
Correct.
right.
right.
But we can't borrow 48 million.
Right,
But that's-
it could come out more
Right.
than the what was our
Our
plan
share.
portion of
Right.
24 million or
And
something?
that's,
But the authorization is for 47 million, some change.
Mhm.
One thing, the police station, the chief is, and it was in a memo, that the chief, you gotta do a lot of reading, a lot of searching, because they moved the town administrator reports again now.
okay,
Mhm.
It's no longer under the Board of Selectmen's tab. It's under, you gotta go under the boards and committees, not the board, departments. And you
okay.
find town administrator, then the town administrator reports, then you can see them. It's no longer under the Board of Selectmen tab. Don't know why, but. If you go searching, that's where you go find it.
Okay.
They keep me guessing. Anyways, the police chief is supposed to get in touch with, look into that. What I gathered from it was talk to the contractors and try to find out why there's such a large discrepancy with the estimates versus the reality. And they were gonna talk about it at the next workshop of the selectmen, rather than a regular
Well,
selectmen's
they
meeting.
should have
I
taken the
don't know why,
marble out,
but,
that's all. Yeah.
anyways, be that as it may. So, under, I have that. So under, new business, or, yeah, under new business, and it's not, nothing really to vote on, it's just informational. As I went to the, after the elementary school building committee, I went to the capital planning committee meeting. At the meeting, myself, I was just there as an observer. Steve Castle was there to make a presentation, but the members of the committee that were there were Doug Morrison and Cheryl Richardson. The third supposed member was Eric Pollitt, the fellowship person. And if you look down at the bottom of here, the Capital Planning Committee, it has Carter Terenzini, Town Administrator, as ex officio member. So I don't know if they did some change and they didn't have to update their forms or not, but it was stated by the chair that they had a forum. They talked about a few things. Two big ticket items that will, some of the things they talked about, like the police station, that's kind of in limbo. The siding for the senior center and everything, that already has funding in place via the last annual town meeting vote and stuff. But two things that came up that can potentially be new items for this annual town meeting in the spring. One was for the assessors to get New Vision software. A few years back, I think they bought or upgraded hardware, but they didn't upgrade the software. And that would be an expense item of $25,000 for New Vision software, which, you know, you sound like, wow, that's a lot of money just for an operating system or whatever. But when you figure that the assessor's office, that to me is a no-brainer, because that's a major funding source for the town. It's the majority of the money, the real estate and real property taxes that, if you look at, that funds the town. So spending $25,000 to generate your income for the town is like a no-brainer. The other big ticket item, and I call it a big ticket item because would be a total of $18,000 for 3 new voting machines. Apparently, when you go to vote and you put it in there and it's scanned, in a couple of years, the company that produces those machines will no longer make any parts, and no parts will be available. It was talked about perhaps buying, and they're $6,000 a piece. And there was talk about, buying, since they have some time to spend $6,000 this year and buy a new one, and then buy a new one the next year and another one the next year. Or to take the money out of either capital stabilization or another funding source. I would think this working capital, leftover free cash, to buy 3 new ones all at the same time. Again, those machines that they currently have do have some trade-in value, apparently, that they could get. But if you go year to year to year, and in 3 years' time, I don't know if you get the same exact machines, or if they make changes, from year 1 to year 3.
Right.
In the
Because we'll get
meantime,
through
your
all the
existing
life.
machines are getting older and maybe lose less value. And if they break down, you're gonna hand count all the ballots, and you'll find out the election results, in a week? Again, to me, this is, it should be done all 3 at the same time. It's an important thing, the election results. Those are assets of the town, and they should be taken care of. But that's what came out of the capital planning committee meeting last night. These are some of the departments that have been reviewed. The library is doing some work up there on the roof, mold remediation, foundation work. Most of that is covered by that $300-something thousand gift that they got.
Yeah.
So, it's not taxation, and other funding is coming from CPC, and I believe that has already been voted on. Emergency management, he's still looking for a truck. And I think there's furnace or heating repair work to be done, a new boiler. But one thing that has been brought forward was a truck for emergency management.
Who's emergency management?
And that was
Richie?
any old kind of a truck. They just have no means to tow. They have all their trailers
Right.
that we have, and they're towing them with their private vehicles because we
right.
have no means to tow them
No
otherwise.
means of anything. So and on the sheet that I handed you, the capital planning committee, those are date proposals. Even though everything's supposed to be in by the 18th for the capital planning, they may meet on the 22nd. They may meet alternate dates on the Thursdays if they need to. I guess they're gonna they're kind of winging it, depending on departments, if they can get them to come in and get everything done. I just thought that was of interest to this committee. It involves finances, and we may see those couple particular things on the warrant, which again is, I believe, due on the 2nd as well, January 2nd, so I thought that was of interest. I was kicking around, didn't have anything due on Tuesday, so I went there. Another interesting item, and I believe I found this out originally. Did I give you two of them or one of them? No, okay. I believe I put it in everybody's packet. For the Narragansett Regional Reorganization Advisory Committee meeting. I found out about this reading the article in the Gardner News. And it had mentioned that the membership that they were looking for was a member of each town's, Phillipston and Templeton's advisory committee. I didn't recall seeing anything, so I immediately went and checked our email accounts, the Gmail and the templeton1.org. I came down Town Hall and checked our mailbox.
Nothing, huh?
I checked my personal email account. I looked at my phone records. I called Will and asked him if because sometimes, you change chairman and it takes a little bit to catch up. He said, I saw that, and I went looking and I didn't hear anything. So, I sent an email to the district office volunteering as a resident to be on that committee, even though there was a deadline of December 11th. And at our last meeting, we reorganized, and we were here for a half an hour. There was a selectmen's meeting immediately following it. I stayed for that meeting. This subject came up at the selectmen's meeting because they voted a member of the Board of Selectmen on this committee. It was referenced by the town administrator. And since there was only 3 members there, there was talk of putting it off till their next meeting. The town administrator pointed out that the school committee was looking for membership responses by December 11th, which would have been the next selectmen's meeting that evening. So they voted that night to put a member of the Board of Selectmen on that meeting. There was no mention of, and you can watch the meeting on record, of the school committee looking for a member from the advisory committee.
Of course not.
And I was sitting in the audience, I was attending the meeting. So, after I did all that checking and didn't see anything, and for one thing, I didn't want the school committee to think that or any of the townspeople, or
care.
anyone to think that the advisory committee is just like, you know, blowing them off, or wasn't paying
Didn't care,
attention, or wasn't interested. And short of calling an emergency meeting for a deadline that had already passed, I sent this email over to the central office, volunteering as a private resident. I made note of the fact of the change of the bylaw because I am a member of the advisory committee, and I didn't want anybody going, well, you can't volunteer for anything on any of these other committees, because,
Yeah.
but we changed the bylaw. So I ran into I spoke with the superintendent at the elementary school building committee, and I got word that I'm on that committee.
Good. Something you always have been interested in.
So, and I kind of hated to do that without input from the committee. Again, in my email, I didn't want to misrepresent that, you know, hey, I'm here, I'm speaking on behalf of the advisory committee, because they did ask for 2 community members, and I just volunteered to get on, because I think it's an interesting thing and it interests me. And I could at the same time keep the advisory committee informed on it.
Okay, do you know the makeup of the committee yet?
It's, yes, it's in this, in your
Okay.
packet, I believe,
All right.
Julie. I hope, if I didn't, I have this copy right here. It has one school committee representative
No, I
from
mean-
each district town.
Do you know the people who have been appointed?
I do not.
Okay, that's
I
what I
don't,
was
yeah.
asking. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was told that they were gonna be discussing that at the school committee meeting that was held this evening. It's
Okay.
probably still in.
All right,
I will find out.
right,
Um,
but if you're on as Jeff
I'm-
Bennett, not
I'm-
advisory,
I'm not, well, that was my next thing.
should we
was
vote you as?
To vote, to ask if there's any problem with that. And if there is, I will say I can't serve and blah, blah, blah. But again, I just said I was stepping up to volunteer. I didn't want to say I'm here as the committee representative, because
Right,
we
because we
we
didn't
didn't
vote
vote,
on it.
well, because we
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
The deadline had passed. So I just asked to be on the committee, and I think there's an understanding or a thought from speaking with the superintendent and the central office that I'm the committee member, but that's really not how I wanted to be
How it
on the
went,
committee.
Okay,
We
Would it
could
be
vote for
advantage to
him
have-
we could vote for him
I-
to be a member, right?
Right.
Again, I will, see, this
No,
is one of
you-
those catch-22s,
would it be
right?
more advantage to have you as a citizen and vote someone else who
I'd-
might be willing to step up?
We'd have to
as an
find out the
advisory
committee makeup,
Right,
because I don't know if they have, I have some theories on why I was on, but,
all right, okay,
yes, I know you're thinking, and
Right.
I thought that way, but I don't know if it would work,
all right,
because of, like I said,
well,
it's December 20th, and the deadline for response was December 11th.
right, but we didn't know about it, and we're not psychic.
Yes, and I mean, anybody
Right.
can still go to the meetings
Right.
and catch up and do this and that, but,
Okay,
and it's one of those committee like I said, I will email and find out the committee makeup, if they,
Right.
and even if they have enough people, because you know, the history of
Gonna have
people
enough.
volunteering for committees, the
Right.
community representatives might still be open. I don't
Right.
know.
right, all right, so.
It was a precarious thing, and I
Right.
wanted to tiptoe around it, but I did not want anybody from here to not be on that, because again, I did not want it to seem, and I explained this to the superintendent, he goes, no, I wouldn't, he said, I just thought it odd that we didn't hear from you.
Right, all right, so would you like a motion?
Well, that
To-
was what I was asking, because
All right. I will
again,
make
this is
that
a
motion.
precarious thing, but because of a
Right.
communication breakdown, for lack of better words, we did not hear from the town office on
Right.
this. Maybe it was a holiday snafu, everybody's got their mind on
Right.
parties and things, and
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know.
I'm gonna make the motion to, nominate Jeff Bennett to be on the,
The committee's
to serve as
representative.
advisory committee
Representative.
representative for the District Reorganization Advisory Committee. It has advisory 3 or 4 times in there.
I'll second that.
You can't avoid it.
I
You
didn't
have
name it.
Advisory,
And here it says you have to be
advisory
willing to, 1 to 3 hours per meeting. So I guess, you know, there'll be a lot of sitting around talking and chatting, and to find out the mission and everything, and what their objective is.
Right.
I believe it started out as to how to handle the new elementary school and the moving of the 5th grade and this and that, but I think it's gonna be a little bit more. But again, I'm speculating. I
Right.
don't even know how many people are, you know, like I said, the community members. I will find that out and share that with everybody.
Thank you.
But
I second the motion.
I just did not want 2 things to happen. I did not want it to look like the committee was ignoring them, blowing them off, not paying attention, et cetera, and I wanted a membership on there. And I could not email you all and ask you if it was okay, because
committee.
that's,
Fine, you're good.
That's not,
I'd be violating that
You'd have
damn
to write
open
yourself
meeting
up.
law. I'd have to go turn myself in,
oh, what was I
to the
gonna
town
say?
administrator, no less.
There was something, I had a question. It's
Yeah,
gone.
I interrupted you on your train of
My
thought.
train of thought
I'm
is
sorry.
gone. It'll come back.
You get
Uh,
derailed.
I have those, well, I won't say it, but I have those moments too.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Oh, does the school committee have our new email address?
I am going to make sure of that.
Okay.
In
That-
fact, I am
that
going
was-
to,
that was what
I
I
am
was
going to
thinking.
suggest or ask Sue Varney that in the future, if they have anything that they want the advisory committee involved in or to attend, of our new email address and my personal email address, just as, in case it misses one, I catch it at the other, and then I can forward it over to the advisory templeton1.org email.
Right,
But
and
just
then push
to,
it out,
so
yeah.
it will go, and, you know, contact the, email us, don't go through the town office, trusting it will get, please just, so this, try to avoid this little
Right.
mishap from happening. If you send it to the committee direct, we will be more apt to get it than not. And again, I apologize for, you know, kind of taking a little liberty, but again, I was,
No, thank
I
you
I
for
was thinking
following up on it.
of the committee. Like I said, I saw it in the newspaper. That's how, if I had, wanted to read the paper, we would be blowing them off, because I wouldn't have
Right.
no idea about it.
No.
And I'm thankful that it was after the deadline, 9 days after the deadline, and, you know,
They accepted
they
it.
accepted me on
Yeah.
there. So I do thank this superintendent and the school committee for that, and the subcommittee that made the recommendations, but,
Okay.
so,
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
yes. Any further ado? Bev,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes. Again, that's one of those things that, you know, I thought important, and we should be on top of it. And I don't know why we weren't notified, what we weren't given, but we weren't, and that's,
Good thing you're not sensitive. You feel bad.
so. And we did have a member at the capital planning committee and at the thing to find out is if they actually had a quorum. That would look bad if he's actually officially not, and I did meet him,
Right.
Eric, and, but I mean, it would be kind of bad if,
Okay.
because he was,
So
there
he
was three,
was- he
he
was
was
the
there
ex
as
officio?
as a quorum.
Okay.
And it
Oh.
But he's
Right.
not listed on the form as,
As
but
a
I don't
member.
know if they voted in and that's not an up-to-date. I didn't even cross my mind until I got home and I'm looking at the paperwork going, he's not listed here, so I
Right.
would have asked Doug then, but,
I was just gonna say, like I said, I don't know if it's listed on the new capital planning breakdown, if it's listed as, or his designee.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that from one
Right.
of them, but I don't know if it's that
right,
one or.
it's, like I said, on this
the other
form though that they
criteria.
had,
I
it
thought
it
it was
lists the
weird,
members.
nobody introduced us
but
to this
it's-
kid.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lose a lot of sleep over it, but if I could,
You would have thought.
Are we,
I
are we
will.
still on new business?
What's that?
Are we still on new business?
We still are on new
Okay.
business, if anyone has anything to raise.
You wanna go first?
I
You
do,
go
I have
first.
just one concern, just something to update. We just received the, first quarter information in an email, I believe it was today. And I just started looking through it, and, a couple of things popped up, and, is just like, let's say, very, very much an oddity. So I've questioned these, and I'll update the committee on, the responses that I got. But, we have a LA4, comparison report from fiscal year 2018, 2017. And looking at this, the property type 104, which is the two families, seemed to jump in value without any parcel changes, jumped in value 31%. We have 90 parcels listed in 2017, 90 parcels listed in 2018, and the value's gone from 12.6 million to 16.5. Where single-family homes have gone up 4.2 and three-family homes have gone up 1.4%. That 31% change seems like something's wrong
No, I.
to me. Oh, you,
I talked to Sue about that. And, because we were talking about the tax rate, and she said what happened is the sale of two-family homes pushed pushed their value way up. They're paying more money for them.
Right.
So that's why, not only are these people gonna get whacked with an increase
Valuation.
per thousand, their values shot up too.
Yeah.
So they are gonna be in
So-
for a rude
so they
awakening
revalued based on some sale.
on sales.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now-
this was a reval year. Again, I think this came up with the Municipal Modernization Act, there was a change. They usually, your property rate, values are revalued every 3 years under the old way. They changed it to 5 years. And again, talking to the Board of Assessors and stuff, there was I think the DLS was debating how they were gonna coordinate that change, because they were on a 3-year schedule, and they didn't know if they were gonna, and I believe they did the 3-year this time, and now they're on the 5-year rollout.
So it's gonna be a big enough change, so it's gonna really
So like the last time,
shock.
the tax rate went down, but some people's tax bills went up because it was a reval year and the valuations of their home. So if your home was worth 300,000 and now it jumped up to 500, even if the tax rate went down a little bit, you got a couple hundred extra thousand. So, people see the tax rate go down, but their tax bill goes up, and they come into the assessor's office and they do the explaining, and then, the bill, well, you gotta go see the collector. So that is, again, that's what people are gonna see. The tax rate went up 60 cents, plus property values increased. And a lot of that is, I just do a lot of reading on this stuff, because I don't have a life. Yeah, they, like, even though we only have one rate, if the commercial property sells, or selling for more and more, boom, they get that. And like she said, the two-family, the three-family, the single-family homes aren't selling. That kind of stays, and it goes on what you ask for and what you get, and they track all of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So-
So it just seems
Yeah,
odd to
it's-
me that it's
yeah.
the one category that's gone up, 31%. And I wonder how many abatements are gonna come back out of that. That's my issue.
Well,
The,
that's-
the other thing in relation to that, it might be the same answer, is the property types 501 and 502, which are the individual partnerships, associations, trusts, and corporations. The individual partnerships, trusts, and so forth seem to have gone down 82%. Or the amount of parcels have gone down 82%. The assessed valuation difference is 45% less. In the other, and the corporations is 10%. The number that struck me, and this might be part of the Municipal Modernization Act, is that it lists the parcels in 2017 under individuals, partnerships, and associates is 221 and down to 38 in 2018. So it just seems like, what, to me, and it just struck me as.
Yeah, when you have a big flux like that, it is.
Yeah, and I just asked for some clarification, so when I do get that, I'll present it to the board, to the committee, but, it just, seemed
Yeah.
like some really out-of-place numbers.
I just had one comment on
Yes.
this report. It was dated October 23rd, 2017, and we just recently received it because it's the first quarter report. Do we know why that happened?
I was looking at that too. I thought that was really,
Shouldn't we
It
have
should be
received this a lot sooner?
Well, one
I
would think,
would think.
unless the audit fieldwork interfered. And it shouldn't be the first quarter.
It should be the second quarter. We're in the second, almost at the end of the second quarter. I don't know. Yeah. It just suddenly appeared, and I'm like going, why is this, like, you can't even really.
I
look
do
at
recall there was
budget to
a,
actual.
I remember there was a memo or something, put out a message, email. There was gonna be, it shouldn't be this much, I don't think it should be this much of a delay, but I remember there was some about, we used to get them like, almost like right at the beginning of a month,
Right.
and now, and I forget exactly what the reasoning is, but I seem to recall there was a thing that there was gonna be like a 2-week
Carter had to approve
pushback
it
from what
first.
we used to get them, closer to the beginning of the month, when they switched to this quarterly thing, rather than a monthly thing. And it had to do with, I don't know if it was reconciliations or the timing of bills or how things go out, but I'll try to dig that up for clarification, but I remember when they switched from the monthly to the quarterly, I remember there was something mentioned, it was gonna be like a 2-week period for something, and then the revenue thing was gonna be further out, spread over a longer period of time, but I have to go dig through my pile of stuff and, read through my emails to find that out. But yeah, it is odd that it's, it says first and we're actually almost at the end of the second.
Yeah,
But maybe that's just a keying error.
okay. Well,
What Sue said was that even, especially in Gardner, that people are coming from Boston and they're buying houses at what their asking value is, or even sometimes more.
Right, well,
And they don't want great big lawns because they don't have time.
you buy a house here for 300, just for 300,000, you go to Boston and you're paying $1 million.
I know.
right.
And you get a yard this big. I mean, that's just like pure economics. And they still got the commute and still got to
But
drive that way.
still, I don't think a lot of people are gonna be prepared for
But,
for their tax bill.
well,
Yeah, well, got 2 more
Somehow.
days to get that out.
Yeah, ho, ho, ho.
the Grinch.
I have, something under new business. It's a possible article for annual town meeting. Here we go. Thank you. And I know if we were going to vote on it by a committee, it would have to be voted on tonight because it's due by January 2nd.
Maybe you better make it the May annual town meeting, because now we have more than one annual town meeting. We have a fall annual
that's-
town meeting.
I can do whatever you want if you,
I think this is a wonderful idea. if we had done something like this years ago, we would not be where we are today.
But I swear the first line is in that pesky financial management policy that the town has.
That's where I got it from.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's what I did.
So, I mean, if you follow your policy that you create, then this is what you do.
Right.
Because you can have all the policies in the world, but unless you follow them.
Question, Julie.
Yes.
No, excuse me.
No,
Oh.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead, that's,
Just wondering, how strongly you feel about keeping in the obtains a bond rating part of it, you know, or, you know, I'm just saying, this looks like a good policy on infinitum, not just until we have a bond rating,
Right.
but, you know.
I'm not, the reason why I wanted that in there, perfectly honest, because if this is adopted as a warrant article
Mhm.
and put in the annual report, this is the only place I think people would be able to find out in future years that the town of Templeton did not have a bond rating. I don't think it shows up in any other annual report, in any other place.
And I don't think the people know it
I'd be
today.
willing to take it out. I don't have a problem with that, but that was why I put that in there.
No, I was just wondering, because, you know, it limits,
Right.
which,
Well,
I
say,
see, you know,
change it then and say something to the effect that the town will always be in a position to have a bond rating if you do this.
Right.
Make it-
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know, figure out how to say it with it.
you know, we could also leave it like this and change it then. You know,
Right.
after we do have a bond rating,
Right.
if need be, or
Right.
if we, you know,
can
still
just-
fighting with the,
Right.
mm,
But to put in as a policy that you have working capital and not have a line item for working capital and not, you know, what is working capital? It's never been defined. And to say that you're gonna take, you know, 50% of your free cash after you pay everything else off and put 50% into working capital, and then the other 50% that's left goes into stabilization, I don't think is going to get us where we need to be to get a bond rating. So that was the logic for this.
The town should always have money there, so if we changed it to reflect that we want this to be so that the town is financially secure.
Right, I think we can
Yeah.
put that in as an explanation,
yeah.
but not as part of
Okay.
the
All right, I
motion
get it.
or warrant article. You know, and I put a percentage instead of a dollar amount because that was why the other article was disallowed at town meeting, so.
Yeah. Until the town is forced to put money where they really need it, they'll spend every cent they have. This is what's happened time and time again. If they are required to put 50% of that money into stabilization, then they don't have a choice. They have to do it. And I can't even tell you how many town reports I have read where the advisory board chairman begged the town to put money in stabilization or in free cash, just so that there would be something there, and time again, they spent it. So as long as they keep doing that, nothing will change in this town. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it. You can't spend it all and expect to have a bond rating or a good interest rate. And I don't think people understand that we don't have a bond rating to this day. And it could come back to bite us. Ooh, it's cold in here.
Yeah, it is. It's cooling off.
So I make a motion that we take Julie's article and put it on the town meeting warrant. I'm cold. Chills.
Mr. Chairman, may I, just a question relating to the writing of this. I'm just thinking, this, 50% of the total certified free cash shall be available for appropriation. Okay, so it's available for appropriation, but, nope. Or shall be appropriated to stabilization. They can't do that?
You can't tell town meeting what to do.
Okay.
You can make
That's
it
what I-
available for town meeting to discuss and put it in.
Awesome.
That's why it's worded that way.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay. Right, I know. It would be nice to maybe be able to have a bylaw to force town meeting to do stuff, but you can't put it that way.
I like a bylaw to force people to show up, but.
Right,
Yeah,
Well, wouldn't that be
I
wonderful?
second that.
yeah.
The one thing, and I'm thinking like another board, or maybe the town administrator. Certified, free cash will be certified, once the ballot sheet, and stuff is done. And that can be like in the fall. And then you have a fall special town meeting. And if you have, if you have $300,000 in certified free cash, you have something that you wanna fund with free cash that will leave you less than $150,000. You won't be able to do it because you will be violating a bylaw.
Well, you could put it
I'm
into
just-
stabilization and
I'm-
then have an article to take it out of stabilization, to fund whatever you needed to fund.
Oh, I mean, I understand the
Maybe it shouldn't
concept,
say
and this is the
annual.
highway to get you there,
Right,
but it's between the here and now, while you're building up stabilization, you have a need to have access to your free cash. But if you use X number of dollars, you'll be taking more than 50% of that amount, so you won't be able to do it, and you won't be able to cover that emergency with free cash. And again, I'm thinking like I'm trying to think
Right.
like a different board.
all right, but think of it
We-
this.
In
Right. If you follow this, you should have enough money in stabilization to put an article on to fund whatever it is you need to fund.
again, I understand. If this passes in May, though,
Yeah.
and our stabilization is still at what, $92,000? Something like
Well,
84,000?
we just put some money in.
Um,
No, it's 92 plus 136.
It's, yeah, whatever
So
it
it's
is.
220
Two-
something.
But if you have something that you need to cover, it would be that first hard step.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
Right.
I'm thinking, like, because really, we shouldn't really need this, because we should be striving, the leadership should be striving to
Right.
take that money and not looking for ways to spend it, but looking for ways to save.
I just
at
don't
least
understand,
part
I
of
don't,
Right.
I mean, that's my own, that's My only
Right.
thing is, it's the first go-round.
All right, should I take annual out so that at the fall? I don't know.
See, that's a trouble. People used to always go
Because
to
if
the
you take out
main one.
annual and you try to put, do something big like that, they will say, you should wait for the annual town meeting. You should wait.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Right. But this is an article for annual town.
yeah, even though an annual town meeting is, they call it an annual because it's required by law to have a town meeting at least once a year during a specific time period, and I think it's February or March to
Thought it was March.
June.
Yeah.
There's a fluctuation in towns. Some towns have their annual town meeting in June, some have in May, and some have them earlier. But then you can have a town meeting anytime you want. The selectmen can call one, 200 registered voters can call a special town meeting anytime they want. Go and tell the selectmen, we want a special town meeting. Here's our petition. And those are called special. But they're town meetings, and you can do any business at a special that you do at annual.
Mhm.
It's just some people think that, some big thing, some important thing, you should save it for the annual, but you're not
That's what I would
required to.
think.
So it's, if you take the annual out, I'm just, again,
Yeah.
you may get the argument, we should do this at annual. And if you put the
Alright.
annual in there, well, what if we need to do something in the fall when we actually have our free cash?
As a point to what Jeff's saying here, combining what Julie just said is we have roughly $225,000 in the stabilization fund now. Our average stabilization fund return, if you go 13 through 17, was roughly $200,000 a year. Half of that would be less than we have in stabilization right now. The entire thing would be less than we're having in stabilization at this moment. So potentially we could cover that. If that instance in the first go-round came up, we could cover it with stabilization itself, and then replace the money in stabilization
refund
from the
it,
free
right.
cash if,
Because
as
you
a,
have a
as a,
mechanism to
you know,
replace it.
If the town, of course, 2/3 of
yeah.
40 people ain't a lot of people.
Right.
True. I mean, so there is a possible correction for that, potential first problem or the
Go-around.
first time
Right.
doing this,
Okay.
I think.
So, I'm not opposed to putting it forward.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere, but you never know if you
Right.
don't try. If
Well,
you don't
I'll
try, you
probably
don't.
still do it as a citizen petition as
But-
well, because they can just throw it out.
Yeah, that's the only sure way you get something,
Right, it has to.
that you
go in.
get something on the warrant.
Right,
Unless, if you're not a selectman, it really is. It's the
Right.
only way to.
that's the way it is, right.
Definitely get something on.
No.
But I think as a committee, we should support this, because I want to see a plan. I don't see any plan how we're going to get out of the hole we're in.
Well-
And unless the line in the sand is deep enough so somebody trips if they fall in, nothing's going to change. And we need to start having some money put aside, even if we have to do without something else. Because the town is got to be fiscally stable.
I was not speaking in opposition or anything
know,
about it.
no.
I'm just thinking, I'm trying to think
know.
like a selectman when
Right.
this comes in front of them.
I know.
What is the pushback? What would be the reasoning for not putting it on there? Because, to be perfectly honest, I don't think they will put it on there, but
I don't
that's,
either.
I'm just,
Right,
and I'm trying to think like, the different reasons for that. I'm not opposed to putting it in front of them. It's an opportunity, we're a committee, if we think this is the committee as a whole thinks it's a good thing to do, or at least something to try, then we try it.
Well,
Is this something that has to be decided tonight, did you say?
yeah, because I believe. any
Unless we
warrant
meet next
articles-
Wednesday, and
Right. Did
I'm
you
not
wanna-
sure that's,
Yeah, I'm not in a position right now to, decide if this is a good idea or not. I'm kind of opposed to the idea of writing it into a bylaw. This should be, good fiscal policy,
I agree. It-
you know?
it-
So, and I'm just thinking of the timing and everything that has to be
Yeah.
done in order to,
Yeah, it's, again, it's some,
you know, are
Right.
we going from one town meeting to another? Are we gonna be forced into delaying decisions because of this hard-coded, you know, requirement, so to
Mhm.
speak, to put so much into the stabilization fund, or at least vote for it? So I just don't know enough at this point. If I had to vote now, I just, I don't know. Maybe I won't vote, or I just don't know enough at this
Yeah.
point.
No, I didn't know the warrant articles were gonna be due January 2nd. so,
Yeah, I
you know,
didn't realize they were that,
It's
do that soon.
I saw the thing, and
a Maytown meeting, so, you know,
Okay.
I didn't make up that timeline.
It makes a lot of sense, really.
I don't know if that's the date they're gonna close the warrant. I think they're using that philosophy, well, the warrant's open all year long. It would have to be checked on, but, and again, I don't know if that's how they're gonna do it, if they want the articles so they can look at them, group them together, open the warrant, close it.
Right. Because weren't they gonna open the warrant in February and close it in February? Or was it January? They had a timeline, but they haven't followed any
They
timeline,
did.
so I don't know.
Yes, all I know is I saw that they want everything, if you want an article on the warrant by January 2nd. I don't know if they're gonna say, well, this is what we got, and the warrant's closed. And then they're gonna put it together
Well, no, they have to vote to open
at a
the warrant.
workshop.
They
Well,
have
I-
to, and it has to be open for 14 days.
I-
So have they done that?
But I think they are following the philosophy that the warrant is open all year long. So it has been open for the 14 days. I don't know if that's their argument, if
Because they're
that's,
selectmen, and they
if
don't
that's
have
the
to follow the
reason,
rules.
All right,
I don't know.
okay.
The 14 days is just for,
I could ask that question,
citizens.
but it's really not gonna help us. I mean, I could contact the TA and ask him, email it to him. I don't know if he's gonna be in tomorrow morning or not, but
Yeah.
at 7:30, when the offices should be open, but, again, as we said, this,
All right, well, did I second the motion? Did you made the motion, right?
I mean, they ain't even gonna have the school budget, they're not gonna vote on the school district website, they're not gonna vote on their school, on their budget till March
Well, I'm gonna
21st.
do it
I
anyway.
don't know how you do the warrant, but, again.
Was there a second to that motion?
No,
It's,
not yet.
All right,
It's a rush
I'll
time
second.
frame and everything.
okay, Bob May seconded it. All right. Yeah, I mean, are they just gonna do placeholder articles?
Like I said, I just
Okay.
know that he put out that, I think that, in one of his weekly reports, that, you know, all warrant articles, all departments have their stuff in by the 2nd. So,
Okay,
Again, I just call at one selectmen's meeting, he did state that, put that out there, that the warrant is, for all practical purposes, open all year long.
okay.
And the selectmen can, you know, and the selectmen can also put on articles after the warrant has been closed. That's probably a debate from, you know, that could go on for a long time.
Okay.
So, do we have is there a motion and a
Second.
A
second on this?
motion and a second, yep.
Any further discussion on this?
Just if this is gonna be an article that's gonna be, you know, supported, sponsored by the advisory committee, I'd feel better if the whole committee was able to vote for it too, so.
It's-
Yeah, I would
But
too.
we got a timing issue here,
Right.
I understand that, so.
Right. I just don't,
we can debate it on town floor. That's what town meeting's for.
I just,
You're talking to yourself,
all right,
Bennett.
I'm not sure if you can even, All righty, without further ado,
Sure,
Bev,
yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Paul,
I'm gonna say no.
Bob?
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna have to vote no, because I'm not, I'm not sure about something, and, I'm sure about one thing, I'm pretty sure about one thing, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna get on, but,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Are you going to, would you, mind, I would do it, but I can't,
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward, if you could put that and send that to
Yep.
town meeting, I
Yeah,
mean, to,
I'll
the
just-
town administrator
yeah.
and stuff forth.
So I'll just send it the way it's written and,
Yeah,
Okay.
just, and see, where it goes.
Yeah?
crumple it up and throw it
I don't know why I think like that,
Not if
but-
it's electronic.
You're right, you're right. Delete, delete,
Yeah, but-
delete.
Wise guy. You're sitting next to me too much, you know that, don't you?
All right.
All right, anything further? I do have one thing, before we go. This was in our mailbox. It says, please join us for our first annual holiday open house, the Boynton Public Library, Thursday, December 21st, 2017, at 12 to 5 p.m. I think they might want to show off what they're doing or what they have plans to do to their upgrades and what they're doing with that gift that they received, that
You
generous
better,
gift
it's
that
falling,
they.
place is falling
received.
apart.
So, if nothing else,
So, good night, sweetheart.
I'll say Merry Christmas to everyone, and
Yep.
I would entertain a motion, if you're all set, Paul.
I am.
Okay,
I'll
to
catch up.
adjourn.
So moved.
Second it.
Okay.
Anybody want to stay?
Nope.
Okay, Bev,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yeah, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I will say yes. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Second, thank you.
Be careful out